Welcome, Burn Nation, to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I know you tune in to listen to Devan and Morgan, but today you have some random dude. Who am I? I'm Bryce Morrow. I'm VP of HQ Gyms, which means I work with the gyms that we own directly across the country. And I'm going to answer some questions about myself today to give you a little bit more insight into the people who work at HQ. Question number one, how did you start with Burn Bootcamp and how long have you been with the family? I actually have a unique story on how I got into Burn Bootcamp. I was Devan's college roommate, which means I actually met Morgan about the same time because they were middle school sweethearts, I believe. So at the time that I met him, I also met her. And post-college, we actually were both playing professional baseball. He started sooner than I did, so he was actually done playing before I was. And I had the privilege of watching him start Burn Bootcamp just as a friend, right? So it was this thing that he started and was telling all of us about. We were cheering him on, but really didn't know a whole lot about it. And as I was still playing, he kept hitting me up saying, hey, I've got this thing going on. I'd love for you to join, right? And my answer was always, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying not right now. I'm chasing a dream. And to his credit, he always said, hey, chase that dream, man. But when you're done, give me a call. And that's exactly what I did. The day I realized, hey, I stink at this baseball thing now. It's time to be done. I walked right off the mound, picked up a phone, gave him a call, and he said, hey, you know what? I actually do have a franchise business coach position open. I'll put your name in the hat, and you got to do the rest. And that's how I joined Burn Bootcamp almost 5 years ago in 2018. All right, question number two. What is your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it? It's going to be very hard to pick just one, so I'm going to give you two. This year, I actually told the boys that I was going to grow a mullet, and so I had to, obviously, and I grew a mullet, and that was definitely a big failure. And what I learned from that one is, hey, just stick with what's tried and true, because this is definitely tried and true, and I'll never stray away again. In all seriousness, I would say that my biggest failure would be chasing a Major League Baseball dream for about 24 years and not making it. Right, I actually made it to AAA, so a lot of people, when they hear that, they say, hey, you made it a long way, that's great, right? And I agree, I had a lot of great experiences, I learned a ton from it, but when the goal is to make it to the major leagues, and you don't, well, that's a failure. You're trying to do one thing, it didn't happen, but because I learned a ton from it, it's one of the best failures in my entire life, and it shaped most of who I am today, so it's really hard to break that down into one thing that I learned from that failure, but the biggest overarching concept I would just say is grit. And I know that that's defined as long-term pursuit and passion for a goal. And what I really learned was how to chase something that I really wanted, be honest with myself about where the gaps were, and put the work in to close those gaps, and it's something that I still apply today. Question number three, what's the best compliment you've ever gotten? Sticking with the last question, I mean, I would say the best compliment you can ever get is coming fresh off a haircut and having someone be like, that looks clean. It's like, I know that's obvious, but it's still good to hear. So that's one. And then another thing that's always nice to hear would be when people compliment my work ethic or my leadership, mostly because those are two things that, one, are very much in my control, and I work hard at them. I'm very intentional about them, and also I know that it has an impact on other people. So I take the responsibility of growing in both those areas very seriously. So when someone does take the time to say, hey, I see you working hard, or hey, I really appreciate you as a leader, that's something that really means a lot to me, because it just lets you know, hey, you're on the right track. Question number four, what has Burn Bootcamp done for you and your family? This is one that's hard to answer because for me, Burn Bootcamp is family. And the best example I can give for this is I moved down here for this role in 2018, and I came ahead of my wife and kids, and to get down here, get started, start the job, and they were actually finishing up football season for our son. And so I'm down here looking for where are we going to live, where are the kids going to go to school, just weighing heavily on me that this is a big move, and I need this to be a great experience for her, the kids, because they don't know anybody down here. And thankfully, I found a great place for us to live. I figured out the school districts, all those types of things. But then it's still, who are your friends? What are you going to do? What's your support system? And as soon as they got down here, our Burn community just wrapped them up in love. And quickly, the community and support system that we have down here was bigger than where we even came from. And That was one of the coolest things about Burn Boot Camp and how it impacted my family. Question number 5, if you could go back and give advice to your 18-year-old self, what would it be? This one to me is easy, and it would be, hey, listen here, little boy, when there's going to be a time in 2020 where you get bored and you decide to shave everything off your face and just leave a mustache because you feel like, hey, people might need a laugh right now, right? And you know what? You're not wrong, because you did it and people do laugh and it brings joy to those around you, except for one very important person, and that's your wife. And even though you shaved that mustache off, in her mind, it's going to be there forever. She can't unsee it and you can't undo that. So don't go down that path. Stick with what works. Don't do the mustache, little boy. Question number 6, what is the best personal or professional advice you've ever received? And this is probably the most profound advice I've ever received. It was from my parents, and it was probably when I was 15 years old and really getting intentional about how I was working towards being a baseball player. It was, before that, it's, hey, let's go play catch, let's go swing, just because you love it. And you start to be at that age and you're starting to actually follow weightlifting programs and throwing programs and just being intentional about how you work towards your goal. And they just said, hey, you never want to look back and wonder what would have happened if you would have worked a little bit harder. And for whatever reason at that time, that just hit me just right. And I thought about that every single day, and that's how I went about my days for the next 14 years until it was time to hang up. But the cool thing is that's something that I can carry on with me forever, and that's what I do. Question number 7, what's a hot take or an unpopular opinion that you have? This one is so easy to me, and it's that the Detroit Lions are going to win the Super Bowl next year. Motor City Dan Campbell is going to lead the boys to, let's see, a 12-5 record, and they're going to take it all the way, and they're going to win the Super Bowl. We need it. We've been waiting a long time for it. Next year's the year. Those are all of the questions that we have today, Burn Nation. Thank you for spending some time with me, getting to know me a little bit. And you know what? If you thought, hey, this random dude's okay, but I really miss the Klines, well, what a better reason to leave a review and let them know how much you miss them and how much you love this podcast. So with that, we're out. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.